Hey everyone, welcome to the Middle School Visual Arts PLC group. I'm so glad that you joined this community. It was created with you in mind. Our goal is to collaborate and support each other as we navigate the craziness of teaching middle school visual arts. Whether you are the only one in your system or one of many, we know that you're going to find things here that will help you. In order to make this as beneficial as possible for everybody, be sure to set up your notifications and check back often so that you can see posts, discussions, and support that we're going to showcase. Please engage in discussions and offer up any support or questions that you may have. Also, share this platform with your friends and colleagues. The more we grow, the more we know. So, having said all that, it's time to introduce myself. All right, I'm Alicia Montgomery. I'm the moderator for the Middle School Visual Arts PLC group. I'm currently located in deep South Georgia. I'm married to an amazing man who happens to be my best friend and an amazing dad. There's no way that I could do what I do without him. He has spent more hours than I care to tell in my classroom and in his studio helping with whatever needs to be done. He has painted sets, he has helped cut out things, he has laminated stuff, he has helped mount artwork for Youth Art Month. The list goes on and on. I also have two amazing boys. One is at the middle school with me, which is crazy that I have a 7th grader already. And then I have one that's in elementary school. We also have a dog named Landis, who my oldest named kind of close to our youngest child. His name is Landon. So he loves to play with our dog. The dog loves to play with the kids, so they have lots of fun. In my spare time, I just really love spending time with my family. We like to hike and kayak. We like to read, or I like to read. We love going out and going on photography expeditions and taking different photographs. I also do a lot of graphic design on the side and some photography and create some jewelry. Teaching has always been something that I've had a desire for. However, I had a little detour. When I was small, I used to set up my stuffed animals in my bedroom and pretend that I was teaching them. In high school, I got an amazing opportunity to be part of a teacher apprenticeship program. And so when I was a senior, I got to apprentice with another teacher, well, with two other teachers actually. One of those teachers was an amazing art teacher, and she was actually the teacher of the first art class that I ever had. She was amazing. She taught me the basics of art. It was the first art class I've ever had, and she really instilled in me my love for art. The second teacher I had was not so amazing. And I went, I don't think I want to do this. So from there, I went on to college, unsure what I wanted to do, except I knew that it had to have something to do with art. I took my first graphic design class and had that aha moment. So that's what I focused on. So I graduated from college with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree with a specialization in graphic design and photography. And that's what my first job was working in graphic design. I created ads for companies and layouts for newspapers and magazines and that kind of stuff. And then I found myself working as a supervisor, and I would train a lot of the new employees about how to use the software, how things kind of ran at our company. And my boss came to me one day and said, hey, the technical college in our area had called and needed somebody to teach printing and graphics. She said, I think I've got somebody if I can talk her into it. So she came to me and said, hey, there's this opportunity to teach. It's mostly adults. It's 2 nights a week for like a quarter. And if you don't like it, that's all you have to do. And I thought, well, I can do anything for 10 weeks. So I tried it. And I went, oh no, I missed my calling. So I decided at that point that I needed to go back to school to teach. So I went back on my lunch break and at night, and with the support of my very newlywed husband, decided to teach art. And I went back to school and earned my Bachelor of Arts in Art Education. So my first teaching position was in a high school where students have never had any art. They didn't have elementary, middle school art, so ninth grade was their first art class. My classes were made up of students from 9th through 12th grade. I taught comprehensive art 1 through 4, all in one class. So I had to learn organization and classroom management fast. I had an amazing mentor who was not an art teacher. She was a family and consumer sciences teacher, but she was absolutely amazing. She'd been teaching for many, many, many years, and she helped me learn those classroom management skills, learn how to build a rapport with my students and build those relationships. And she also helped me learn how to keep my cool when those students really push those buttons. So while there, my students and I constructed sets for the drama department. We painted a couple of murals around the school. We also participated in a lot of community art exhibits, and we even put art in some local businesses. So after finishing my first 2 years teaching high school, I had my first child. We bought our first house, so a lot of firsts that year, and I transferred to the middle school that was close to where we lived. I had been driving about an hour one way every day in rural South Georgia. So it was about 60 miles. Crazy. But I decided to go back and get my master's degree with an infant and all this new stuff. So I went back to school. I went, I guess a couple of nights a week after teaching all day, spending an hour with my little infant, and then went all summer doing studio stuff to try to get finished. So after 2 years, I finally earned my master's in secondary education with a specialization in art ed. So fast forward, I've been teaching 19 years. It has flown by. 2 of those were at the technical school, 2 were at high school, and then my last 15 have been at the middle school where I currently teach. During this time, I've taught under 6 different principals, each with all their own styles, all of whom I learned something very valuable from. At my current school, I wear lots of different hats, like we all do. I teach 6th and 7th grade comprehensive visual arts, so it's just kind of an introductory class. For most of my students, it's the first time they've had art. We used to have 8th grade when I first started teaching here, but a few years ago we restructured, and so our 8th and 9th graders are at what we call a junior high now. I'm also the webmaster for our school's website. I'm the public relations liaison for the local newspaper and work with a group of students to create our school's yearbook every year. I'm also the system liaison for our local art center and the system school organizer for our Youth Art Month exhibit that we have every year in March. My students and I have also painted murals and display artwork year-round at our school. And I also write grants to help get supplies and materials for our program. Throughout this time, I've had lots of support from friends that I've made through state art teachers organizations. I enjoy organizing used to enjoy organizing art teacher conferences and love presenting hands-on workshops for the state conferences. I've also taught classes for our local RESA, and I love seeing the look on new teachers' faces when they realize there are other people out there who are willing to help them and have been where they are. I also love being able to share new ideas with veteran teachers and learn from other new and veteran teachers, especially during these unprecedented times where we never know what the next day is going to bring. You don't know if you're going to be face-to-face. You don't know if you're going to be quarantined. You don't know if you're going to be teaching from home. So we never know what to expect anymore. We have to be prepared for everything. So with all this support from colleagues and friends and family and administrators and other teachers, and from the experience that I've had for teaching all these years, and from my own students, I learned a lot from my students. But through all of this, I was nominated as Teacher of the Year for our school, and I've also held the title of Middle School Art Educator of the Year from the Georgia Art Education Association. One of the things that I love best about teaching is that every day brings something new. And I keep learning new things all the time. New teaching strategies, new lesson ideas, new techniques. Not all of them work, all right? A lot of them do. But I love learning those new things, good and bad. I believe that our students deserve the chance to be able to develop to their full potential. Teachers need to communicate within the classroom the idea that all students are equally important. I tell my students, I don't care if you're black, white, green, orange, or purple. When you come in my classroom, I want you to be able to try new ideas, try new things without having to worry about what anybody's going to say about you or about your artwork. So we really talk about respect a lot in my classroom, and not just respect for me as the teacher, but respect for each other and respect for themselves. Parents, students, and administrators have to be involved in this as well to help them in their everyday lives if they're going to succeed in growing into valuable members of our society. To develop to their full potential, I feel like we are obligated as teachers to ensure that our students are presented information in a way that they can all learn. Whether it's audio, whether it's visual, whether it's kinesthetic, whether it's multimodal, and at all different levels, from gifted students all the way down to our SPED students, or all the way across to our SPED students. Adaptations are going to need to be made for all levels. And we need to make sure that we're doing that as teachers. I also feel that, yes, we need to be instructors, but we also need to be leaders and facilitators. We've got to be really versatile so that we can meet the multiple changing needs of our students and allow them to come up with their own ideas, discover some things on their own. We don't just need to spoon feed them everything that they get. Our students are entitled to an authentic learning experience. We need to make this relevant for them as much as we can. This includes ensuring that they have the capability to think logically as well as creatively. How can they problem solve? This is going to be our future, and we as educators have to make sure that they can do this through cross-curricular learning and authentic applications for the lessons they're going to learn. I think that we should have high standards, and we should make sure that we teach higher level thinking skills to our students. One of the other things that I feel very strongly about is that they've got to have work ethics. Work ethics are things that are going to help them in every career that they have as they grow and make them ready for the workforce. Okay, teaching through the premium graphics program and sending students out into the workforce and meeting with businesses and what they're looking for, that's one of the biggest complaints they have, is our students are not prepared in the area of work ethics. And so I think it's really important that we start this even at a really young age, like our middle school kids, instilling those qualities in them. They've got to have things like being able to be an effective teammate, being responsible and self-responsible, being organized. That's really hard for a lot of middle school kids. Making sure that they're prompt. So I really push them about being on time to my class. Don't be tardy unless you have a note. Those kinds of things, so that they can really be productive as they go into society later. I teach these skills through individual and group projects. Not much group projects this year, but usually community service projects and some other activities that we do in our classroom. The final thing is technology must be part of every program, not excluding visual arts. Our society is so technologically involved that teachers must include this in their curriculum, especially in the state of Georgia, with as fast as the arts and media fields are growing in our state. We've got to make them ready for this. So it's essential that we incorporate this new technology skills into our lessons so they can be successful in this technology-infused world. As a visual arts teacher, I incorporate drawing and photo editing software into my instruction. So through this variety of experiences, students should gain self-confidence, some self-awareness, and respect for others and themselves. And it should be just part of their complete learning and growing experience that's going to help them reach their full potential. Right, so normally, the way my classroom is set up to achieve all of these crazy things, All right, it's set up in stations, and I call it station mania because it's a little crazy, but I call it organized chaos. So normally this is the way my classroom is set up. This year things are a little bit different because of all the COVID and not being able to share materials and having to all face the same direction and all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to kind of show you what we normally do, and hopefully we'll get back to this coming up year. This is where my class is set up in stations where students can choose their own projects from a set that I have selected. If they're artistically gifted, then I also give them the option to kind of come up with some of their own projects within the media that they're working with. But they and I will come up with a contract of how they're going to do that and what their guidelines are going to be. All of the projects meet the Georgia Standards of Excellence, and all of my students are going to start benefiting from this because the students get to work at their own pace. Slower students can get help from their teammates. It allows for different levels of instruction, okay, also known as differentiation, right? It's our buzzword. Gifted students can choose more challenging projects. And then all the students get to choose their project from a set. The next thing I want to talk about is why I decided to teach this way. I got to do this as part of my student teaching. It helps with collaborative learning, which, as we all know, is something they're going to have to do on a day-to-day basis in any career that they choose. It works with little or no budget. So if your school system gives you a great budget, all right, if you have no budget at all, like you're like scrounging stuff around, all right, this works either way. It's great because instead of having to have a whole class set of something, you can have just a small set of it. So like if you're using brayers and linoleum cutters, you only have to have 6 or 12 instead of having to have 30 or whatever it is. So you need less tools, less equipment, right? And it's easier and quicker to clean up. Okay, I have one sink in my classroom, and so a lot of times it's hard to get all 30 students to the sink to wash their hands and wash paintbrushes and whatever. So with this setup, I may only have 2 groups that need to go wash things instead of having a whole class. Right, so how do we just set all this up? It's easy to set it up, but it does take a lot of time on the front end. Once you get it set up, though, it just kind of maintains itself. You can add projects to it, or you can adjust them if you find one that's not working. You just kind of refill the consumable parts. I have lots of cabinets, as you can see in this picture, and bins that are just labeled with the stuff, whatever it is they need. Construction paper or glue or scissors or rulers or whatever. I currently have some little chalkboard labels that have written on it whatever it is. And this picture is a little bit old, but I've been quarantined for the last week, and now we're out of school for a week on a pause of instruction. So we're trying to get kind of using some old stuff, but it's set up the same way. I label each station, so I have a little piece on the table or hanging above it that says printmaking or drawing or painting or whatever the station is. And then I have some examples of artwork at each of the stations. And so this one you can see is our printmaking station and our GaDOE station. So they do 2 different types of printmaking as their options. They can do a linoleum print, or they can do a fish print, which is called GaDOE. Then there's examples there on the cabinets so they can see them right in front of them. This also helps them kind of pick which project that they want to do. Most of the time I try to have student examples, but if it's a new project, it may be an artist or an example that I've done to kind of show them what to do. And then you've got to have a space to keep their artwork for each class. I've been blessed to have lots of drawers in my classroom. So each class has their own drawer, and they have a little portfolio that their artwork goes in if it's dry, and their sketchbooks. If it's wet, we have a nice big drying rack where we can put their wet work as well till it dries. All right, so here's some more examples of kind of what my classroom has looked like in the past. Now remember, it's not looking that way this year because of all the COVID regulations. But you can see the yellow labels show what's in each of the drawers. You'll see some of the artwork there. Got some examples of art on the walls. A lot of those are student examples. Some of them are posters. You'll see over on the right our Jackson Pollock, kind of behind that big TV. There's some watercolor paintings down on the cabinets down there. So those are just some of the things that we do. This table sitting on the floor here was it's the basketball scorekeepers table, and we were in the process when this picture was taken of painting it our school colors and putting the mascot on the front. So that's what this giant thing is sitting in my floor right now. And then you'll see some more examples of some student art. To the left of the window, there's some of our graphic design projects that we've done. All right, some more of our space in the back. Examples of student artwork back there on the shelves. And then we have several computers you can see in this picture and the other one. We've actually gotten a couple more since this picture was taken. So we've got a good setup. We kind of pieced those computers together for a while, and then every year or two they started adding another one so that we could kind of have a good set. So now I have enough for a station. I have our elements and principles there. We're missing 2 posters, so I've got a couple of students working on some replacements for those that we're making. Alright, so how do I keep up with all of this stuff? I have a notebook that has all of the lessons in it, and it's labeled on the front. I try to have enough for each student, or at least every 2 students to share at their station. So it could be, you could use ceramics, you could do drawing, you could do painting, you could do mixed media or printmaking or sculpture or any of those things, whatever you choose for your stations to be. Now, I don't have this many at one time. I usually try to just do 3 to 4 stations at a time and kind of rotate them through those. And then if we have time, we'll switch. My classes are short in how long I see them. I only see them for 9 weeks, and I only see them every other day. So that kind of limits what we can get to. So how does this work? We kind of start off with some whole class instruction for a couple of days to familiarize students with our rules and procedures. How do we come into the classroom? How do we go out? How do we clean up? All of those things. And then I tell them kind of which group they're going to be in and which station they're going to start off with at the beginning. And then they have, depending on the class, 2 to 6 days to, or sorry, 5 to 6 days to finish their projects. They get to choose their lesson, and on the first day that they're at that station, they complete their introductory information and complete their sketches in their sketchbook. The rest of the time, when they first come in, they go ahead and get their projects out and they get started. They don't have to wait on me. They don't have to wait on somebody to pass out materials because they know where everything is, and it's usually located close to where their station is. So that way it cuts down on a lot of that downtime you have at the beginning of class where they can get into a lot of trouble horseplaying and roaming around the room talking to their friends. Most of the time, once they get started on their project, they're really excited to work on it every day when they come in. They usually work pretty steadily because it's something that they've picked and they wanted to do. And then when they're finished, at the end, they have a rubric that they'll fill out, and it might be digital or it might be on paper, depending on what project they're working on. What do my lessons look like? They're created in Microsoft Word. They have a materials list. They have their essential question. They have the instructions. There's an example of their finished artwork, either by a student or by a professional artist. It has the Georgia Standards of Excellence listed on it, 4 visual arts, and then I usually try to put the academic courses that we meet as well. My administration really likes that. And then I have 2 to 3 lessons per station. I have one easy one that's kind of in the middle, and then one that's a little more challenging. So this is what they look like. A lot of times our community is very heavily migrant based. So we have a lot of migrant students that come and go throughout the year. And a lot of these are first generation Americans or are only here for the harvest season. So they don't speak English, or they speak very limited English. So I try to, as much as I can, get all of my lessons done in English, and then I will translate them, or I will have somebody translate them into Spanish, so that my students can look at those side by side and they can still work from the lessons that are in that folder as well. And these take a little more time to build, and so I would kind of just get them done as my students needed them. But you can see, like, this was our true story art comic one. We have our central question there and the goal. So it's kind of, what are they doing is their goal. The essential question is what I want them to learn from that lesson. Then on the side, we have our materials list. And I tell my students, you don't have to get all of those things out at one time. Wait until you need them. And then if there's a resource book or a notebook or some examples that I want them to look at, I usually list that in that box as well. I have their procedures. So what is the step-by-step things they need to do? A lot of times I'll put little examples on there. And then their standards of excellence are at the bottom. Here's another example of our project. This one is on Mississippian ornamentation. And these are also called gorgets. I'm talking about Native American art. But this is one of our ceramics projects. This is one that we use a lot, even in whole class instruction, when we're very limited on our time. And so we've got our central question, we've got our materials, got some steps on what to do in their sketchbook or how to plan. This one asks for them to watch a PowerPoint first, which I either pull up on a computer at their table or one of the ones that you saw around the edges of my classroom. And then kind of what to do day 1, day 2, day 3. I have found that putting the days on there helps them kind of stay on track, so they know, okay, by the end of this day, this is what I need to have done, so they don't get so far behind, or so they don't get behind. Then on the right is kind of the way I do my assessments. This is a paper version that I just scanned in for this. It has a place for them to put their name, and I make them give their artwork a title, because as artists, that's kind of what we have to do sometimes. And then I have all of the things that I'm grading them on. Okay, and this particular rubric is 2-sided. This is just the front. So, like, how big is it supposed to be? What kind of symbols are they supposed to use? What does your craftsmanship look like? What elements and principles of art did you use? So I want them to be able to learn to speak in the language that we're using. And then they grade themselves 1 through 4. Then they turn this into me with their artwork. And then I go through and, using the same form, grade them as well. Now on the back, there's also a couple of questions that they have to answer. Like this one has something, why did you choose the symbol that you used on your gorget? What was it? Those kinds of things. So it goes back to what their project was, and it's kind of like a reflection on what they've done. I also have some digital versions of these things. So I'm just going to go to my website really quickly and show you kind of what that looks like. All right, so here's my class's website. I have just a home page that just gives some information about me and one of my works of art, my contact information, just some basic information, our syllabus for our class. And then I have a 6th grade and a 7th grade section, some list of fun sites, upcoming events where I put kind of our contest information when we have those, put the guidelines on there, so even students that aren't taking art can still participate in those. And then, so that's kind of what we got. So under each grade, it has some of the projects that they can choose from. So like under my 6th grade, right, they've got all of these different things. Got some jungle critters, some drawing projects, some ceramics projects. So this is one of our ceramics projects. And it's set up very much like the instruction sheet. So I've got our essential question, got our standards of excellence, got some examples of student work. And then we have the instructions and things at the bottom as well. Same thing for 7th grade. Like this is our color wheel mandala. Has our essential question, our standards. This one goes through the elements and principles of art, using some just cute little YouTube videos that the 7th graders find silly, but it helps them remember it. Here's a little bit of background information about mandalas, and it asks them to do a couple of things in their sketchbook with those. And then it gives their guidelines for their sketches, and there's a video here. And so I teach them how to use the little pop out. And I'm just going to let you watch this little video so you can see kind of what that looks like.
You should be the page right after your notes that you took on the mandala video. And you're going to draw a circle. Okay. Then you're going to divide that circle into 12 even sections, and these are going to be your sketches for your mandala. So if you'll do a vertical line and then a horizontal line, okay, that'll get you started, and then you're going to do 2 lines in each quarter of your circle. So I'm going to draw a line here, make sure that it goes through the middle, and a line here. Okay, go ahead and let those go all the way across. You can use a ruler for this if you want. Okay. Then you're going to come up with a design. Your design needs to be a pattern, right? And it needs to repeat in each slice of your little pie, each slice of your mandala, or in every other one. So for example, I might do a curve like this. Then the other one, I would do a curve the other way. So in this one, I would do a curve this way. This one, I would do a curve that way. And I would keep doing that all the way around. So it's making a alternating pattern, okay, alternating rhythm all the way around your piece. Okay, and this is your sketch, so I don't expect it to be perfect at this point, but get your ideas down. Right, and then I might come in and I might do a circle here. And I might do that in each one.
And this is a video that I created for my students. Maybe it's going to load, Casey.
So if you send me this link from your Google Drive,
okay,
I can also download this and add it to the video itself.
Okay.
It'll be easier.
Yeah.
Easier.
Like I said, everything loaded just fine.
Over it, or we're showing it?
I was just going to show it. It has audio with it already.
Okay, yeah. So
okay, well, that'll definitely work.
Yeah, so just send me that link after this, and then I'll download it and then add it in.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back on mute and then pretend that you just talked about it and then go to whatever else you wanted to.
Okay. All right, so that was our video. And then I have just some examples of other mandala designs that they can kind of use for inspiration. Then when they go to the final project, kind of gives them some ideas about how to use, we use temper cakes. And so how to use the temper cakes, how to clean them when you make a mess. And then it gets into what to do for their actual final painting. So again, there's a little video here. Has the procedures written out. for those of my students that are visual learners, makes it real easy for them. Right, and then there's another little video here.
All right, so I'm going to show you how to draw the base for your final mandala project. So you're going to start off with a large sheet of paper like this, right, after your sketch has been approved. Then you're going to get your template, which is on the front table. Put your hand in the center, right, and then draw a circle using the piece of poster board as your template. Right, then you're going to have your template for your sections. You're going to line it up with the edge of your paper in the back, and then line it up at the top and the bottom also. If it's a little bit off, just center it. You're going to need a ruler. Make sure it's one that doesn't have little dents or it's bent. Line it up with the edge of the paper. Draw a line all the way across. You'll line your ruler up with each individual line. Make sure that they're starting in the same point in the center. And once you've done all of those, move the paper out of the way. Line your ruler up with the lines that you drew already and draw the other side.
So the last thing that they do is they prepare it to be mounted so that we can display it. We either display it in the community or in our classroom or in the hallways at school. So there's some instructions there on how to mount those. And then the last thing is their rubric. So they can continue to it. And this one just kind of gives them some guidelines of where to find it and what to do. So that's kind of how ours is set up. So we have those digital versions and the print version for each of our stations. Some of my students like to have the hard copy, but most of them like to do the digital ones. And they can pull that up on their own electronic devices, or we've got a few laptops they can use as well to pull those up and watch those things. So this is some of my student artwork. This is one of the drawing projects we do. This is one of our graphic design projects where they create a mixed media surreal figure, and then they take it into a photo editing software and do some effects and come up with a verb that goes with their figure. And then we've got a couple of other examples over here. One of our cityscape drawings. This was an independent project that she picked herself. This is a project that we did in conjunction with the public library in our school. They were having a display of hats from all different periods, and they came to us and asked us for the students to create hats of their own. And so these were some construction paper and mosaic hats that my students created. These are some of our Youth Art Month entries. And here's some other examples from that exhibit. And these are some of our 7th graders' work from that exhibit. So I hope you're enjoying kind of what we're doing. I have found that over the past few years, some of my students are less engaged with the typed lessons and didn't really want to read the directions, and that's what got me started doing the digital ones. I found I got higher quality work when I started doing those over the last few years. So, but as for everyone, this year's been really different. We've all been face-to-face all year. We've been very fortunate in that regard, but I've had many students quarantined due to COVID or exposure to someone who's tested positive. Because of this, I'm doing more whole class teaching. I'm using some of the digitized lessons so that students that are quarantined can work from home as well. I usually send supplies home if they don't have things that they can use. Any new lessons, I'm kind of videoing as I do it in my face-to-face class so that I can post it onto my website or our platform that we're using for digital learning, so that my students that are not in person can work on those as well. So I hope to get back to doing stations next year, but that's kind of where we are. So I hope that this has been helpful for all of you. I hope that you'll continue to come back, because we're going to have lots more additions to this as we go through. And just make sure that you get signed up, share this with your friends, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.